It's 4 o'clock rock.
All right.
Here we are, starting from the far end, Ray Starling. Welcome back, Ray.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
Co-host, and Sharon Moriwaki, Hawaii Energy Policy Forum.
Aloha.
All right. Oh, and our special guest, I think I should probably mention you too, Camilo Mora. He's an assistant professor in the Department of Geography, the School of Geography at UH Manoa. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
I have to tell you a short story. Back in the 60s, there was a spring picnic at Harvard Law School. And, the assistant dean was introducing the dean. The dean was Irwin N. Griswold. The assistant dean was James Kasner. You've heard these names. Griswold went on to be the Solicitor General of the United States. And he said, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Dean Irwin N. Griswold. When the dean was a very young man, he had his first tobacco product, and he has never had another cigarette, cigar, or other tobacco products since. Ladies and gentlemen, when Dean Griswold was a very young man, he had his first drink of alcoholic beverage. He didn't like it. He has never had another drink of alcoholic beverage again, ever in his life. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Irwin N. Griswold, a man with one son.
With what? Oh, only one, but he could have no sons. He could have nobody.
So, ladies and gentlemen, I give you a citizen of our state with no cell phone.
There you go. Good one. I got it now.
What does it mean that you have no cell phone?
Well, to be honest with you, we have been studying the impact of humanity in nature, and it became very obvious to me that every individual on this planet, we are consuming more than what the planet can give us. You know, we had a part of this pie that is our planet, and unfortunately, we are eating more of the pie that belongs to us. So it's the right thing for every one of us to use what is the right amount for us. And to be honest with you, one of the first things that I caught was cell phones. You know, do you really need a cell phone? Of course, some people need a cell phone, but if you want to reach me, you can call me home or at the office, and that's my phone there. The same thing with cars. I don't use a car. And to be honest with you, in Hawaii, I just don't get it. Why do you have a car? Finding a parking spot at the university, it takes you half an hour. I mean, the same amount of time that you had to waste to plan to get in the bus is the same amount of time that you waste looking for parking there. Not to mention all of the hassle that you need to take the car to be fixed and stuff. I just use my bike. I keep healthy. Don't have to pay for gym. And just the fair thing to do.
What happens when you get older?
To be honest with you, it's very funny because at night now in King Street there is a
bike lane.
And you see all kind of old people walking on this thing. Super nice people. They say good night to me and everything.
They're not. Oh,
you see all kind of people there. So this is a huge mixture of John. I mean, so what we need to do is generate a movement, in which you can potentially get to have all King Street just allocated to people riding their bikes.
This is irresistibly draws me to a scenario that Sharon and I had in Lanai when we went to see the energy conference there a couple of years ago. We talked to this high school girl, and we said, so you don't like the undersea cable? You don't like the wind, on the island there? What do you want to do? She said, we want to do PV everywhere, PV. That's all we want to do, just PV. And I said to her, well, what happens at night when the sun goes down? And she says, so we'll go to sleep early.
I had one student of mine the other day. We are building a robot, right? And we needed to track the time on this stuff. So she said to me, why you don't use your phone? And I said, no, I had no phone. And the student said to me, how can you live? So now it's generating this need. And now this is essential for human survival to have a phone. And this is incredible, really.
This is the age of energy decadence. That's what we have here.
That's true.
We're trying to recover, and you're trying to show us the way.
It's totally possible. I'm telling you, I got here on time. You told me to be here at 3:45. I was here at 3:45. No phone, no car.
He's got witnesses too. I'll testify for him.
And here I was calling, where's this? How come he doesn't have a cell phone?
Well, let me ask you, now you decided that the cell phone is something that you can get along without. But what other things do you consider and then not use other than the car? You said the car and the cell phone, right?
Yes. So actually, that's very interesting because one thing that I realize as a scientist, when I do my science, there are certain solutions that are no-brainers. With nature, you don't negotiate. This is not like something that you can go there and say, I give you 20%. No, if nature asks you for 80%, it had to be 80%. These are the laws of nature. You cannot really mess with that, right?
Wait a minute. Don't mess with Mother Nature.
Don't mess with Mother Nature.
Heard that before.
So one of the things that I realized is that there are these very hard laws that nature has set, and unfortunately, there are a lot of realities when it comes down to people, right? And those realities are very hard to overcome. Like, for instance, the fact of eating meat. And I start realizing that in myself. I eat meat. It's one of the worst things that you can do for climate change is to eat meat.
Absolutely.
You know, it generates methane. It destroys nature to graze the cows. And I still eat my steak every month. And I'm telling you, I don't feel any guilt whatsoever for eating that piece of steak. The reason is this. I already know how much carbon that generates. And back in my country, in Colombia, my mom, she owned a farm that there was nothing on this farm back when I was a child. You could see as far as the eye could see, and it was just soil, naked soil for us to plant corn. Right now, there are over 900 species of things living on that piece of land.
She did that.
We did that as a family. My mom, at some moment, she said, you know what, all of you guys are educated. You can now make your own life, but this is the time now for us to pay our debt with this farm. This farm put us all to this place where we are right now. This is our time to pay back. And we did it. Right now we have 900 species, or the amount of carbon that we sequestrate on that farm is sufficient for me to eat that steak, knowing that the carbon that my steak generates is totally being taken care of by my trees.
So what does she have on the farm? I mean, this 900 species. What,
Well,
like what? I mean, plants
this is
or-
the thing that is so beautiful about once you leave nature alone. What we did, we of course stopped farming. You know, we left certain amount of the farm for us to maintain some kind of crops that we eat. The remaining, we start planting trees. Tree here, tree there. It turns out that the birds start finding out their homes on those trees, and they start taking dumps from those trees, and it turns out that
To
those
fertilize
dumps
the tree.
were seeds.
Oh.
See, these birds were eating everywhere, and they were coming to our farm because it was the only place with the trees. They were taking their dumps there. Next thing you know, now we have all of these tiny trees growing there, and 20 years later, our farm has over 900 species of stuff in there.
Wow.
Making the desert bloom. But you know, I still want to investigate the steak. You don't have guilt about the steak.
No, I had no guilt.
If you stopped eating the steak,
Yeah.
that would be better. Don't you agree?
Yes.
And if us three guys also stopped eating the steak,
Absolutely.
that would be better.
Yes.
So and this is we're in an emergency. We're in an emergency of nature.
But that's the reality that I was talking about, the fact that you cannot ask people to give up their steaks. You know, this is like me asking you, you know what, driving a car is very bad, please stop driving a car. That's for me, that's a reality, because it's asking a huge sacrifice for that individual. That person is not gonna give up that luxury of having a car, having an air conditioning. So what we had to do, and I'm hoping we can talk about that, is of course making those uses very efficient so that you waste the least amount of energy to get those pleasures, but the footprint of having those pleasures, you need to pay for them somehow.
Okay, but talking about psychology, talking about individual appetite for for sacrifice and all that. If I, for example, wanted to lose weight, I would stop eating.
Yeah.
And I pay a price for that. It wouldn't be a nice life or anything. And if the world wanted to stop carbon, emissions,
Yeah.
then it would stop eating steak
Yeah.
right now. All of us, all together now,
Yeah.
stop eating
That
steak.
would be a big factor.
How?
Yeah, nobody's
So
not gonna
I
have it.
understand. I
But I've
understand
got
you
my
can't
cell
get.
phone.
I understand you can't get people to do that.
Yes.
It's not going to work in the human condition. But how do you get them to eat steak only once a month? How do you get them to pay their dues on the farm? How do you get them to balance that?
Well, to be honest with you, it's a matter of going and doing it. We need to go and start doing this stuff. It's not about us talking, it's about us going and doing stuff. So 20 years after working on this stuff, as a scientist, our main thing is publications of scientific papers. For us, publishing a paper is like winning a gold medal in the Olympics, and there are different levels of gold medals. Paper in Nature science are the most important papers out there. You get a paper there, this is like winning the gold medal in the Olympics, right? And I won my first gold medal when I was doing my PhD. You know, like, and then I got addicted to gold medals in the Olympics, because from there on, everything that I was targeting was these high-end questions that I knew will get me my gold medal, which was these high publications. So we accumulated all kind of publications, papers in high-profile journals. We were in the New York Times, Washington Post. We had papers already like 3 or 4 times on those journals. And there was this moment while being in Hawaii where I realized this is super sad and pathetic. If I die right now, and I'm there at the entrance of heaven, and God is there at the entrance, and He's gonna tell me, okay, I make you intelligent. I send you from the third world. I give you the chance of going to the first world. Nobody could afford that kind of stuff.
There was that steak.
There was a steak. Yeah, that was a steak. I went from eating a steak almost every day to eating a steak only once. But then God is gonna tell me, what did you do with all that stuff that I gave you? I gave you all of those gold medals, make you intelligent, whatever. What did you do with that stuff? And then I start judging myself. You know what? This is not sufficient from my part as a scientist to have all of this knowledge, and all of this knowledge is accumulated among a scientist, and how is it that it's not being transferred to the general public? And to be honest with you, I decided that Hawaii was the place to make history. And we started a project here called the Carbon Neutrality Project, and there is a woman called Lisa Martin who once came and she started helping me out of the blue. This woman said, I'm gonna help you, and now the two of us are pushing this project forward. And what it is for people to calculate their emissions. Like my steak produces about 10, 20 kilograms of carbon. You need to plant about half a tree to neutralize the emission of one steak, right?
Oh.
So the idea is that right now, for instance, the average American produces 40 tons of carbon. The lifestyle that we had produces 40 tons of carbon. So what we want to do is for a person to know how much carbon you generate, and then we have now mathematical equations that will tell you how much carbon a tree will sequester, right? So let's imagine that you plant a tree that sequesters 1 ton of carbon, but you produce 40 tons of carbon. That means that you need to plant
40 trees.
40 trees.
And
the idea is to plant as many
trees.
trees.
It's a problem, though. It's a problem. So you say everybody on the same boat now.
Well,
you know, you're gonna
lots of
balance the
trees.
stakes. And what are you gonna do? Send out the steak police?
No, let me tell
You had
you.
a steak last night. Come with me.
It's true, Jay. There's probably a paper on it. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Well, there's even better than a paper. I sent some photographs for you guys to look
Let's
at.
look at the
Oh,
photographs.
sure.
Get
Let's look
real
at the
about this
photos.
now.
So
yeah,
this
there
is
you
the
go.
this is Kailua. So we went there. This is one high school, only one grade, and we told these people we need to go and neutralize our emissions of carbon. We need to go and plant trees. And so this is us organizing the things. You move to the next photograph. So this is all the people that show up, and we didn't even try hard. You know, we planted all of our trees there, and now we are restoring all of these watershed from Kailua. So people is eager to neutralize, to have a neutral impact on the planet. It's totally possible. So now what I'm hoping is that we can scale this stuff to the whole state of Hawaii. These are our trees there. Can you see the trees there? When we started that morning, the grass were so tall that they were twice my height. And look at how we left that area at the end of the day, right? And this is all the community that was super. Look at these kids, man. Everybody happy to put their tree there to neutralize their emissions.
Okay,
So yeah, you are saying this is hard. Okay, we know. How do we make people?
Kids get motivated, and I would go too. You called me and said, come on out in the morning, Jay. We're going on Sunday. We're going to plant trees. That's exciting, but change my lifestyle? That's not so
Well, no,
exciting.
but this is the thing.
He's
You don't have
telling
to.
the truth about that.
But this is the point that I'm making is that you don't have to change your lifestyle. Keep your lifestyle as you
You gotta
want.
keep planting a lot of
But
trees.
you
And you
have
will need
to
to
make-
plant a lot of trees.
Make up for it. Yeah.
No, in the end,
Plant the
I think the science is so clear now. I can't imagine any scientist disagreeing, although I think must be a few, about climate change and about the dreadful consequences that will follow, not later but sooner, because these things move quickly sometimes, more quickly than we thought. Like the fact that 2015 had greater carbon use than ever before, greater temperature rise than ever before. The question is the human condition, the human sociological condition of making decisions about this, making plans about this. Sounds like energy, right? We are going to get to energy. But making plans about it, executing the plans, and making
doing
sure
it.
that everybody is in the boat. You know, because people are people. They're mammals. They don't necessarily do rational
I think that we will
things.
get there at some point. And an example of that, for instance, is the tobacco. You know, back in the day, people were used to smoke tobacco. I bet if we were to do a TV show, a show like this back in 20, 30 years, one of us could easily be smoking here and you will be all right with that. Now, if I smoke here, I bet one of the two of you are going to say, please stop smoking here.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not acceptable anymore. So somehow there was a movement in humanity. We're talking the whole humanity generated this movement in which we now make no right for you to smoke in front of me. There is
Well,
still people that do it. You are not going to overcome that.
It's true, and it's all in our lifetime. But you know, just forgive me, but at this point, we're gonna have to take a smoke break.
Absolutely.
Go plant a tree.
Aloha, I'm Rachel Yergin with Aging with Grace. Please join us every Tuesday on thinktech.com.
Hi, I'm Stan, the Energy Man, Stan Osterman, and I'm here to tell you about my show on Friday, every Friday, on my lunch hour, 12 o'clock till 1 o'clock here on Think Tech Hawaii. We talk about everything energy and anything you ever wanted to know about energy. So we're full of energy, and we'll see you here every Friday at noon to 1. Aloha.
Bingo! We're back with 4 o'clock rock here on Hawaii, the state of clean energy, with Ray Starling, Sharon Moriwaki, Camilo Mora, and me, Jay Fidel. And we're mixing it up. We're mixing it up on a very scary topic, though. This is, you know, could be the end of a fair part of humanity here. I don't want to make light of that. And, you know, and it puts the things in perspective. Whatever we do with this show, our lives, our stuff, you know, it's not really,
But
the real
Camilo's
priority.
starting it right because he's starting with the young people. If the youth get it, the children get it,
This
they
goes
kind of
to
encourage their
COP21.
parents, and then they
So
move
COP21,
to the future.
196 countries
Possible.
show up, and
Possible.
they all enter a fancy agreement that uses the word should rather than shall.
Or
And it
will.
says, we hope to, you know, limit climate change to 2 degrees centigrade per annum. Oh, maybe we'll hit 1.5. But, you know, is that enough? Is that enough? That's not enough.
It will put us, scientifically, we have very good, the reason why that the 2 degrees Celsius is a number there is because it will be for us, for humanity, to be at the cliff. It's like a tipping point that if we cross that tipping point, you just don't want to know. I'm telling you, you just don't want to know what's on the other side of 2 degrees Celsius. You just don't want to know. You just don't want to be there. And let me give you an example of that stuff. This is a project that I'm doing right now with my students, looking at the extent to which climate change can kill people. The ultimate sacrifice, which is to die for climate change. And you will think this guy is so melodramatic. Let me tell you this stuff. In 2003, there was a heat wave in Paris, 2 weeks, where the temperature exceeded what the people of Paris was used to. And all over Europe, the same thing happened. 70,000 people died in 2 weeks. All over Europe, 70,000 people died. I mean, this is like a September 11 attack every day for 2 straight weeks, right? So we are studying what did happen on those 2 weeks that make that moment when the city goes super hot so bad. What we discovered is that the same thing repeated itself in Europe in 2005. There was a heat wave in Moscow in 2010 that killed 2,000 people. There was one in Chicago in 1984-85 that killed 700 people. There was one in San Diego in 2005. Next thing we know, we start discovering that these things are happening all around the world, where people, especially during the summers, are dying because it's getting to be too hot. And then we start investigating. We're no medical doctors. Why is that? So what happens is very simple. The human body generates heat, right? So we try to expel that heat by sweating, mostly. So the heart pumps blood from the inside and sends the blood to your skin so that the heat can be expelled. But when it's hot outside, what happens is that the blood comes back into the body hot. So the heart is pumping blood, hoping to get colder, but it's never getting colder for the heart. So most people, especially the elderly, what happens is that this is a test that many of these people don't endure, and most people die. it turns out that even young people can die from this because the muscles will start disintegrating. This is what happens to the athletes when they are doing exercise on the sun. The muscles start being disintegrated, and that generates myoglobin, which is then transmitted through the blood to your kidneys, and the kidneys stop. So even young people can be killed for this stuff. So we had a situation in which the planet is getting warmer during these periods, and we already know very well that people is dying, and it's nothing magic about these deaths. We already know exactly why these people is dying. It's because their hearts and their kidneys and many other parts of the body cannot withstand that amount of heat. So when you are talking about this thing being very bad into the future, let me tell you, Jay, this is not into the future. This is already happening, my friend. This is people already paying the ultimate sacrifice for this business.
Yeah, and I feel that, it's perfect to have a geography guy to study this on a global scale, because then he can pick out the trends geographically. We need to know that. But the one thing that strikes me is that, so this is almost anecdotal, like the frogs you told me about. Want to talk about the frogs?
Yeah.
It's anecdotal, but the frogs is another example.
Yes, so we were talking about that now everybody's talking about climate change. You had economists, ecologists, so everybody seems to be talking about just climate change, like if it was something super interesting. It turns out that what happens is not really that we are interested on that. What happens is that climate change is at the intersect of all of these disciplines. And one example of that is the frogs. So you had an ecologist looking at frogs, right? Right in Costa Rica, this guy is studying these frogs, and he realizes that his frogs are dying. 20 years of that, and he sees the frogs are going down. The population of these species are going down, and then he wonders why. So it's very hard for him to think that something that is happening on mountains in Costa Rica can be related to something that is happening on Europe and in the United States and in China. So it's very hard for him to generate a connection there until he realizes that what happens is that as the planet gets warmer, if this is a mountain, let's imagine that this is the mountain, this is the peak of the mountain. The temperatures are very cold at the top and they are very hot at the bottom. So at the bottom of these mountains, you had fungi that kill the frogs. But the fungi cannot be on top of the mountain because it's very cold. And the frogs are surviving the fungi by just being on the upper part of the mountain. As the planet gets warmer, these temperatures start moving up, right? And what happens now is that these fungi start moving up, and now the poor frog start running out of space until a moment in which the temperatures where the fungi can survive are higher than the peaks of the mountain, and unfortunately the frog ran out of space where it can survive. So you had a frog being killed by a fungi, which unfortunately was being triggered by climate change. So the steak that I was eating in the United States was causing the extinction of a frog in Costa Rica.
But my point is that those are two anecdotal situations where simple temperature changes change the environment and destroy things. Okay, and it happens in
That's the
microbial
scariest
oceanography.
part.
We don't know.
We don't know.
Scientists like Camilo are going to find these things all over the world more and more. You have only begun. And these things could happen. We're talking about the airframe, the airplane analogy that you made. Why don't you talk about that?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you something, though, that you point out there, whether we know sufficient or not. Because that's at the core of the problem right now. Because a lot of people will argue that we cannot really invest money into preventing climate change, given that we don't know enough about this stuff. Unfortunately, I think that we already know enough. And the analogy that I used to use for this is, imagine that you are climbing a building from the outside with a ladder. And this is a 4-story building, and you are climbing a 4 floors through this ladder. Now, if you fall from that ladder, from a 4-story building, what do you think will happen?
You die.
It's possible that you die. You might
Break
survive.
something.
You are going to break something, right? So my knowledge right now of physics will tell me that given the force of gravity and my weight, something is going to happen to me. I had enough knowledge to tell you that something will happen to you. Now, if you were to ask me, are you going to break a bone? Are you going to break your head? Are you going to be killed? Are you going to get paralyzed? I just don't know. Because that would require an incredible amount of knowledge for me to be able to calculate exactly what's going to happen in that trajectory from you going from the 4th floor all the way down to the 1st. But my knowledge is sufficient to tell you that something bad is going to happen. And this is exactly the situation that we are with climate change. We have sufficient knowledge right now to tell you that it's not good the pathway that we are right now.
Well, but here's the scary thing, it's the timing thing. To go to your airframe analogy, so it's an airplane, and the airplane is like losing species. They're becoming extinct, and each time a species is lost, a rivet pops out, right? And the airplane keeps on flying. Well, there are some rivets that are mission critical. And one species, could be one of those species we're dependent on, and when that one pops out, the whole plane goes down, and we don't know what or when. So, the point is that timing is hard to predict, except it's predictably unpredictable.
But again, you don't want to be taking away screws from a plane when you are at 30,000 feet.
No.
Right?
In any event.
So this all goes to the question. I mean, I think it's fair that science. We've had many discussions of climate change, and we understand the risks. We even understand what could be done to ameliorate it. Technically, but we don't do anything. And so it's a governing question. It's a human sociology question. Is if all you guys are rationally terrified about what's going to happen, if science has told you in no uncertain terms that the world is going to crash, the plane, the ladder, what have you, what you can do about it? And in fact, we have a question from Twitter. If climate change breaks all boundaries and global divisions, who is most responsible to unite the fight for our planet? Maybe it's you, Camilo.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think we had a body right now that will have that kind of power to integrate the planet.
That's the problem.
Maybe the Pope.
Well,
that's
we have
Speaks
run
out.
into a problem like this before in recent history when we had the CFC, chlorofluoral
Yeah.
carbon.
Ozone.
And it was eating away the ozone layer, and countries came together and decided we got to do something about this, or we're going to pull that last rivet out of the plane, and we did. And the ozone layer, the hole in Antarctica has been getting smaller, the hole that was made by the CFCs. And so I have faith that if we've done it before, we could do it again. And I don't know, you went to the conference.
Is that a
in Europe.
legitimate comparison?
Yeah, it is, in the sense that there are examples in our very recent history that humanity had integrated to fix a problem, right? However, I think that we need to be vigilant to get started on those solutions right now. Unfortunately, we cannot use that as an argument to keep slacking off.
Oh, no,
That's kind of the problem
yes,
that I see
yes.
with this stuff. And actually, I was taking before the show this morning about a presentation that I gave at the state capitol. A priest came to me and he said to me, you know what, this is obviously something that you have spent a lot of time, and I don't doubt your science, but God will provide. So for me, that was as an excuse that somehow God is going to come and save us out of this stuff. And I was telling you how I got very irritated after I started thinking about that, because then I thought, no, I don't think so, because think about this. God made us very good looking and stuff, gave us this planet, all of these beautiful women that we can enjoy seeing every day.
Especially present company.
He made this paradise for us. What do? We go and destroy the paradise. And then you have all of these scientists telling you, we are destroying the paradise, we are destroying the paradise, we are destroying the paradise. You die, you go in front of God. I'm telling you, man, God is not going to be happy. I think that God is going to be super pleased. Are you kidding me? God is not going to help us at all.
I know what's
man.
going to happen. You're going to, you die, you go to God, and He says, that
What did
steak.
you do?
That steak, you ate that steak. I told you that eating that steak was bad for
Not
the
enough
environment.
trees. You didn't plant enough trees.
Well, I
So
think
the-
the ozone thing is
the-
interesting
the-
because
I
it
I
did
mentioned
work.
the CFCs because it gives me some hope that we can do something.
Yes.
It's,
If
we
it's
put our
like it's
minds
not
to it.
hopeless, but we have to do something.
Yes, I think
it's
that
not something you can ignore.
Yes, and to be honest with you, it's nothing that we need to make discoveries. All of the solutions are there, and the reason why I like the analogies is because the analogy you make there is that there are indeed solutions to fix this problem. What I don't like about the analogy, again, is to use that as an argument to start this tomorrow. Because see, we know that there is a solution, so maybe tomorrow when this becomes a real problem, we will have a solution.
Yeah,
and
that's-
unfortunately, that's kind of the problem that we are facing right now, is that we are delaying the starting of these solutions. And the longer we wait, the harder it will be for the whole planet to heal back from this stuff.
You know, just looking at it in a long-term way, as we talked before the show, is if you have 7.3 billion people on the planet now and you don't do anything, you know, we have empty meetings, lots of meetings, and don't do anything, then what happens is we have reach a balance. You said you were working on something like it. You reach a balance where, you know, the society sort of drops down, human endeavor drops down, human population drops down, and nature begins to recover over millions of years.
Yeah,
was it? Millions of years, and then you know it's okay. I mean, we'll be better then, or our children's children be better, and it'll be balanced. But in the process, you know, that Earth cannot support 7.3 billion people. So maybe 5 have to go away somewhere.
Oh, actually, you know what, Jade? What you are saying is so interesting, and in fact, I go thinking about that idea about 5 or 6 years ago, and we actually did a scientific paper out of this thing, because one of the things that I thought will be super nice to trigger some motivation for this was to generate a carrying capacity for the planet. How many people can we support well? So I was thinking that this number of people was super high, right? And hoping that maybe we can start planning with that time frame that will take us to get to that number of people. We did the analysis on how many people can the planet support, and what we discovered was that the number of people that the planet can support was crossed in the 1980s. The number of people that the planet can support was crossed in the 1980s.
I'm talking about developing countries. where
Everywhere on
really-
the planet,
Okay.
or the whole planet. And then you make the question, how is it possible then? Why did people didn't start dying? Which is what you will expect, right? That will give nature a break of us. What happened is then that we actually start reproducing more. So we are producing more so than the planet can produce. We only have one planet, right? So the amount of food that you can produce is this, but we are demanding more and more and more. So how is it that people don't die until they become restrained by this threshold that the planet had imposed? What happens is that the quality of life of that people is reduced. So right now you had 1 billion people that at this moment of the day haven't had anything to eat. We're talking 1 billion of us right now that haven't eaten anything. So that's the reason why the planet is keeping all of these people alive. It's because most of these people are living in misery. In fact, maybe like 10% of the whole population today live under good standards of living.
Getting worse. NPR had a story this morning about the fisheries and about how they're being fished out, and about how the take is fractional to what it was only 10 or 15 years ago. Everywhere.
There is a paper by a professor of mine back when I was in Canada who reported that all of the fisheries in the world are collapsing today. Why is it? Well, because we are eating them, right? But at this level of us eating these fisheries, there will be no fisheries whatsoever by the year 2050, plus or minus 5 years of error on the calculations. But the rate at which we are causing the extinction of these fisheries will mean that by 2050, you will have no fisheries in the ocean.
Yeah. So I have another look at this I'd like to throw at you and see what you think. So there's the panic factor. This is a mass psychology factor. We're here now. We're not really panicked. And, Paris was an example. We're not really panicked. But we will be panicked if there are more sandy storms. God forbid if these hurricanes come to Hawaii and just level the place. And if we can't eat anymore, even in the Western world, can't eat anymore. We're going to learn to collaborate. We're going to learn that we have to do more than ozone. We have to really get it together and follow our own rules. But between here, right now, today, and there's going to be a factor of reduction of population and destruction. It is a fairly substantial factor. And for your next paper, what about finding out how many people have to die before we get it straight?
Yeah. Yeah. To be honest with you, I am not that doomsday scenario, because I think that this planet is going to support a lot of people. We can put 12 billion people on this planet, but the quality of life of these people is going to be crazy. I mean, that's one of the coolest things about like me as a person from the third world, is to know that you don't want to be under any of those cases, under those scenarios. As a scientist here, we can make these predictions, these scenarios 5 billion people had to die for us to become new. You make that a scenario because we know that we're going to survive this stuff. Our countries are so strong economically. We have so much technology that we will survive that stuff.
This generation, right now, today.
But what I'm telling you, man, is you go to Colombia right now and you see those scenarios. You go to Africa where people is dying, Ethiopia, Somalia, South Sudan, Sierra Leone, these places where there is massive starvation. And those scenarios that we are thinking into the future are a reality now. And I'm telling you, you just don't want to be under those scenarios. So you are talking about, yes, why is that we had to wait for this crazy stuff to happen for us to become aware of these things?
The other element is, that it struck me that, you said that, we're beyond our capacity, and we can't tell that except we look at developing countries like in Africa, all the ones you named. I couldn't name all those countries in Africa. You got to be a PhD in geography to name those. Anyway, you find out there's people starving hither and yon and all this stuff, and starving people do desperate things.
Oh, yeah.
They need water, they need food, whatever, and they come for you because they want yours.
Yes.
Isn't that going to happen?
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't have to make a prediction for 20 years. Let me tell you this thing right now. In the last decade, Syria was hit by one of the biggest droughts in history for that population. This population over there was never used to this kind of drought that they saw in the last decade. They lose their capacity to produce food locally, so agriculture went to ruin. If California is suffering because there is no water, and we are talking the first world, imagine how is it for a poor country to withstand those changes in drought. So all these people lose their livelihoods, no food there, they were forced into the cities, and now what happened? You have these very radical movements there, and you have people with 5, 6, 7, 10 children starving to death on the streets, a wife, and now somebody comes along telling you, you know what, you come and kill for us, and God will provide for your family. And this is the underlying reason of all of this massive movement of people that triggered this conflict in Syria that now cascade to influence Europe and is now even influencing the United States.
There it is. It's happening already.
It's happening already, and imagine now the United States. This is another example that I like to point out. The border between Mexico and Canada. Right now, agriculture is one of the main sectors of employment for Mexico. According to our analysis, climate change is going to impact Mexico like nobody's business. So as Mexico start losing agriculture, the livelihoods of people there start being impaired, the amount of employment reduces. When employment increases in Mexico, make a simple guess of what will all of these unemployed Mexicans will do. What will be their choice? I'm telling you, man, you don't have to
going to keep them out.
You don't have
Maybe
to.
Donald Trump is right.
You don't have to have a PhD. You don't have to have a PhD in geography to know that all of these Mexicans are going to move to the United States and trigger all kind of political debates here in the United States. So these things have ramifications beyond just few species and here and there going extinct.
We're not going to do another commercial, but I do want to ask Ray to, just for the absurdity of it. So you're telling us then we ought to turn the lights off at night?
Yes, turn the lights off at night. No, just make sure. No, what you can do is just make sure that you use the most efficient lights, and you don't use any lights that you don't need.
That's a start.
As
It's a
simple
start.
as it can
Are
be.
you talking to me? Because, my wife makes sure I do that. And I'm sure
Well,
Sharon,
You've
electrical
got a good
vehicle
wife.
and all that.
You've got a good wife.
But,
But
what
we have
about
to-
all
we
those
have to
people in
know-
the world who don't,
We're here because we already have a sense that we need to be doing something, but it's everybody who's not on board now that we need to get on board. And next time when we have the professor back, I want to ask a little bit about how you approach, how do you get people interested? The kids that you had in Kailua that planted trees, how did you reach out? What did you say? How were you able to get those people to come and do what they
And
did?
are there things that are less than planting a tree that we can do to trade off our eating the steak? Or is it just planting trees?
No, actually, right now, unfortunately, I decided that I'm not going to wait for money with this project. So this money is being self-funded, most of it. And but ideally, we can generate some kind of revenue for the project to be completely independent, no money needed. And at that moment, I want to have the opportunity for people to then reduce their emissions. So it's not about you planting more trees, it's about you becoming
Stop
aware.
changing your behavior.
Yes. You know what? I'm gonna turn off the lights. Tonight, I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna turn off the lights. Like for instance, another thing that we discovered this summer, we went to Colombia, we turned off everything in the apartment, and we came back, and our electrical receipt was just as high. I was expecting to pay 0 electricity because we were not there, and we turned off everything. To discover that all of these appliances had something that is called
The phantom electricity, right? The one that you turn
craziness,
on.
man.
Yeah.
So you need to become now. We unplug everything. You know, we're gonna leave the house for more than 1 or 2 days. We unplug stuff so that we don't waste electricity there. So it's generating this awareness, man. We as an individual need to realize that everything that we do has a consequence.
You're still seeking voluntary compliance.
It
And
will
I don't,
happen.
the human
I do-
condition
to
doesn't
honest with-
necessarily
Look,
respond to
the
that.
United States for me has been very illuminating on the fact that you cannot impose anything upon people. You as a government say you are forced to do this, people do exactly the opposite. What we need to do is to generate a movement in which this is a completely voluntary stuff. And I'm telling you, it will become a movement just like the movement that we have right now with the tobacco. You know? It will be nice the day that if you see a person wasting electricity, another individual coming and telling you, you know what, man, you can turn off the air conditioning, you are leaving, just turn it off. You know, and not being offended by you being called into that stuff. But as you had hoped, I had hope that this can happen, and I'm telling you, if there is a place where this can happen, it's Hawaii. We have one of the most environmentally friendly populations of the whole world because we live surrounded by nature.
Let's assume we do it. I mean, everybody turns the lights off,
Yes.
okay? What does it mean for the rest of the world?
Okay,
We're
for
a
the
little
rest of the
speck
world,
in the
actually, I
ocean.
got this idea from something that I saw on the electrical bill. And one day, my daughter comes and gives me the electrical bill, and she said to me, hey, look, here we are. And we were like on the lower 10%, and then I started getting like this thing, oh my God, we are doing good. But there was this moment in which we were on the top 90%.
All right.
This is not good. You know, we wanna be
Everybody else.
we want to be the best on this stuff. And one of the things that this company did, I don't know, that's from Hawaii, they compare you to the rest
That's
of the
it.
people.
That's what
That's
you're
what we
doing.
do.
That's what he
That's-
does.
that came
Boy
from my
energy.
office.
And I actually look into this stuff psychologically. It generates a race, and humans are all motivated about competitive nature. So the goal of this project of the carbon neutrality is for us to generate a competition. So you can have Kailua and Kaneohe, and let's say that we want to neutralize the emissions of carbon, of electricity, right? So I'm picturing myself as you come down on the H1 through Kailua, having a pole there, which is like a standings. And today, Kailua is third, Kaneohe is first.
Seamus.
And then you had a sign there at the top saying, hey, this week we're going to plant trees to beat up Kailua. So we can generate a race. And now,
Fun, yeah.
as we get Hawaii to be the first carbon neutral, then we generate this competition for other states
And
to
we
join.
publish this to the world
That's right.
by way of think tank.
And it's
Right.
Hawaii. The history in the future, people that is going to look back at history, they're going to think, where did climate
Remember
change?
Hawaii.
Where did climate change got started? And they know that climate change got started in London at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. When did it go fixed? In 2016 in Hawaii.
Yay! It's a start.
All right, I hate to say we're out of time. Ray, you want to take half a minute and summarize?
Well, I don't know what to say. This has been a great show, and we really appreciate your being here. And we will definitely have to have you back, and maybe bring one of the kids that planted a tree.
that's a
so
great
we can
idea.
hear
Yeah,
from
yeah.
their
That's
a
point
great
of view.
idea.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I like your idea about Kailua and Kaneohe.
Start there and compete with all the
Yeah,
other
probably
communities.
change property
Yeah,
values.
Yeah.
Camilo Mora, School of Geography at UH Manoa. He will come back. We will have a further discussion. We will extend this discussion into all kinds of other areas to make sure that it works. We're not going to let go. And next time we come back, next time he comes back, he's going to tell us how he really feels.
Absolutely.
Aloha. Think
Aloha.
Wednesday, think tech, think energy.